Library bill. Because you never know. And you don't want things to get out of hand,
No.
but yet you still want to give people the opportunity to testify.
Are we live?
Sort of.
Sure, the wildlife doesn't get into your house while she's asleep.
It's probably too late for that.
Nowadays.
It's apparently my claim to fame,
Because I thought they usually.
saying inappropriate things.
Maybe this one is.
I had so much fun the other night. I went to
Daylight savings
one of the
time.
Visioning the Downtown meetings. And if the meeting ever gets a little dry, all you have to do in those settings is throw out, I think we need two-way streets downtown. Swing!
I've seen or heard that.
Oh, and of course I did. It'll never happen, but it's an interesting conversation nonetheless. Is it? Where do you go to, where? Okay.
We set up 4 courts. We have sometimes 30 people,
Wow,
and you're just playing all night. So just
fun. And you don't have to be super coordinator or anything. I'm always going the wrong way. I love like exercise classes because if you're supposed to go this way, I'm over here.
Yeah, I do that. That's,
Left, right, or
this
left?
is more ping pong response.
Oh, okay.
So it's reaction, it's placement, strategy.
Yeah, everybody I've heard who has tried it has just loved it.
You get about 50% retention. So somebody tries it one time, 50% chance it comes back.
Nice.
But it is addictive, and we're just painting towards its risk.
For outside? Fun.
And I played up there twice.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Maybe we should do that
It's
during
good
the
summary,
coffee
so
shop.
tomorrow I'm gonna try to work on
Yeah, because
revise
people are just looking for something to do.
DDA
Where is it?
trustee. Although I don't think I'm gonna change the trustee.
Isn't that
I
sad?
still think there's
It's at the shelter, yeah.
Shelter, okay.
even advertising over that it was
Tee off is for the.
not something that was undercutting us.
Rich Behoff, yeah.
player to go.
No, I have not seen it.
Right.
No, actually, I don't have one.
that'd be so
So
fun.
send it to him. I suppose I could ask, and maybe I should send him. I
have to talk to him about Because it can get a little boring
No, I just.
if you're there
I had a
all
feeling
day long.
Last encounter with all those boys, she's frustrated with me, so.
Yeah, I'm running around with all kinds of stuff, but
But if I don't.
But it's right around the corner.
By tomorrow, Monday, maybe I'll send her an email if I see her Monday night, say, could you send me, I really would like to see, because if I miss something, I'll fix it. Oh, that's right, they're.
Well, obviously, we need to wait for,
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I think.
should we wait till August then?
Yes, and we could, she's running out of copies. Apologize for that.
That's okay. Just didn't want to jump in before everybody was ready.
I forgot about their outreach. What I'll do is I'll go through it too and look at it and see if I think I missed something, and then just, when she gets back, I'll ask her, if you have something specific.
We have a slight delay until the secretary gets back, so we'll start as soon as she gets back.
and the cold air starts.
No, there is such a thing.
Just a bit of
Yeah, well, we gotta be careful,
Yeah.
because everybody looks, they talk about our neon sign museum, it's like,
hot or too cold.
That's the two temperatures in this room. So I always bring my blankie.
well, I can honestly say, I
Yeah,
don't think I did.
that's better.
See him. Dixie and I went to the.
Okay, I'm gonna
Museum in
call the
Victoria.
meeting to order. Thank you. The first item should be the roll call.
Brent Bybee,
Here.
Terry Paul,
Here.
Bruce LaViere,
Here.
John Nelson is absent, Mark Popoff,
Here.
Steve Ross,
Here.
Jeff Stiles.
Here.
Thank you.
And before we get started, we have one minor change to our procedure. We need to record who votes which way on each vote. So when we call for all in favor, raise your right hand. We need to hold your right hand until secretary gets listed down who voted which way. Okay? So slow things down a bit, but shouldn't be a problem. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any corrections or changes to the agenda as it was presented?
No.
If not, do we have a motion to pass it as presented?
I move that we pass the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Got it? Okay. The next item is the approval of the minutes from the January 3rd, 2019 meeting. Does anybody find any changes that need to be made to those minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of the January 3rd meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. If I go too fast, let me know. Next item is public comment. This is a time for anybody who, in the audience who would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. So if your comment is something other than what's on the agenda, okay. Then we'll proceed on. Next item is our quasi-judicial public hearing. And we've got rules to read. Now is the time specified by the Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider application number and site plan review SPR 458-19 for, how do you pronounce that? Does anybody know?
Do you want to go by?
Gurpreet Singh.
Group Singh?
Did I get close?
Go by Josan, but yeah.
Josan?
Josan.
Okay. I don't want to massacre somebody's name if I don't have to. Okay, request is to approve to convert an existing medical office building to a 24-hour convenience store. The location of the property is located at 1615 East 12th Street and is further described as 1N 13E 2CC tax lot 10400 and is zoned RH/NC, high density residential with a neighborhood center overlay. Comprehensive land use designation is high density residential. Okay. The subject criteria on which the Planning Commission will base its decision in this matter are contained in the City Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Development Ordinance. Public hearing is required by law and certain rules apply. First and foremost, you must be recognized by the chair, it's me, and in order to speak, recognized by the chair in order to speak and present testimony. When recognized by the chair, please proceed up to the microphone and state your name and mailing address for the record. The hearing is required by law to be tape recorded. Generally, the public hearing proceeds as follows. Prior to the public hearing, a determination will be made of the qualification of the commission members and allow for challenges from the audience. I will first open the public hearing with the staff report. The purpose of the staff report at this point is to further identify the applicable criteria of the case being considered and to provide background information about the case. After the staff report, we will hear testimony from the proponents, those persons in favor of the application. Next, there will be testimony from the opponents, those not in favor of the application. And then There will be testimony from anyone else who wishes to offer testimony or ask questions. Then, to honor the right of rebuttal, we will again hear from those in favor of the application. To expedite the hearing, the commission members may ask questions of persons as they testify. When this process has been concluded, we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. During the hearing, some important standards apply. First of all, those who testify must hold their testimony to the decision criteria. As in all land use hearings, there are a complete set of rules, procedures, and criteria we must follow. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by a statement of evidence sufficient to afford the commission members and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Third, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with details specific enough to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in the circuit court. Fourth, prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, the law states that the commission must grant the request by either continuing the hearing to a time and date at least 7 days from the date of the initial hearing, or the record must be kept open for a period of at least 7 days. Those are the rules. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anybody jumping forward. Okay. Now, have any members of the commission had any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias which would prevent you from rendering an impartial decision in this matter?
No.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the qualification of any members of the commission? I don't see anybody jumping forward again. Okay. Does, public hearing is now open, and can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. You guys hear me okay? For the record, my name is Riley Marcus, and I'm the Associate Planner for the Dallas Community Development Department. The first request tonight is a site plan review to convert an existing medical center into a 24-hour convenience market. The property is located in the RH High Density Residential Zone and the Neighborhood Center Overlay. See if I can get this to work. All right. The subject property is located at 1615 East 12th Street. The applicant had a pre-application meeting on February 7th. The application was deemed complete on February 12th, and a notice was sent out that same day to property owners within 100 feet. With further review and at the discretion of the director, the site plan review was elevated to a quasi-judicial action, and therefore notification was further sent out to landowners within 300 feet. As stated earlier, again, the property is located in the RH High Density Residential Zone, and the adjacent properties to the north, east, and west all have a residential use. So the RH zone currently does not allow for commercial businesses. However, the subject property is located within the NC, the Neighborhood Center Overlay, which does allow for a mix of commercial, residential, civic, and light manufacturing uses. This zone is intended to create transportation-efficient, pedestrian-oriented locations for small businesses and neighborhood-based services. The property to the south is currently a medical center, and the properties on the corner of the intersection are all commercial businesses, as well as they include dentistry, orthodontist, notary, orthopedics, sports medicine, acupuncture, and I think a beauty office as well. So most of these businesses right now are open between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And just to show you guys the floor plan of the proposed use, currently, other than the widening of the curb cut, the applicant is only proposing to make internal changes to the building, so structural stuff that would be approved through building codes. This would be further reviewed at the time of a building permit through an approach permit through the curb cut. No, I already said that, sorry. Conditions of approval would include a landscaping plan to be submitted. Any proposed lighting that was not approved would have to comply with section 10.7.030.120. The applicant would have to provide 7 parking spaces, 7 bike spaces, and any activity that essentially would produce radio, TV interference, noise, glare, dust, particulate matter, vibration, smoke, or odor shall not be allowed. Any new signs would have to go through a sign permit. The applicable sidewalk and access and approach permits would need to be submitted again at the time of a building permit. And then depending on the planning commission decision today, a limited hours of operation. So before I kind of end my summary of the staff report, I want to talk about some additional, I guess, comments that were submitted within the last day or two. So I don't know if I need to bring that to evidence now, or it should be handed out and passed around to all of you guys. So I do have 2 new emails in support of the application. In addition to that, I have some responses, and I think you guys have mostly got email copies of this as well, as that's what we just handed out. But there were some errors to the staff report. Some of them were typos, so like repeated words, and we will be making those changes. There are some spelling errors. I said replayed instead of replaced, so it's just little errors. There are further questions in regards to whether or not I addressed all the proper criteria in the staff report. I also attached some further clarification on that. For example, initially the applicant submitted a proposed change of use. Proposed change of use are evaluated on the intensity of the use and what was prior. So in this case, we made the finding that the proposed use would be more intense of the last use, which was an existing medical center. That essentially triggered it to be through further reviewed through a site plan review. Through the past site plan reviews, we've had some discussion on whether or not landscaping standards need to be required. That is something we contacted our city attorney on in an email, and we thought that this case was very similar to that, as it was a proposed change of use and just the internal of the building was changing. So that was kind of some clarification on those items. And I think the rest was for the other application. Oh yeah, and sorry, this was an email from our Commissioner Bybee to further clarify some of these standards in here. And then I did want to point out that we did receive comment from our fire chief at our site team meeting, the pre-application meeting that we have. And his only requirement was to install a Knox box. It was not included in the staff report because his review is not essentially until the building permit phase through building codes. So just kind of going over those clarifications. So, yeah. So now I want to go over the comments that we did receive from adjacent properties.
We could either include those as we go through the opponents and the proponents, and enter these as evidence, if that's okay.
You know, if they are actually in opposition, that would probably be the proper procedure to enter them at that time of the hearing.
Okay. And then if they're not here, can I go over the ones from proponent or at that time?
Yes, if there are some that were more proponents, that we could do that during the additional proponents' testimony.
Great.
Okay.
So I'm going to go over.
I'll try and ask in the process to make sure that you enter whichever ones you need.
Okay. So I'm going to go over staff's recommendation. That the applicant obviously submitted a request for a 24-hour convenience market. Staff is supportive of these ultimate plans to the property. However, there are concerns regarding the hours of operation and impacts to the surrounding residential neighborhood. Staff recommends the convenience market be open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. The majority of existing commercial businesses in the neighborhood center overlay are open between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Extended daily hours would allow for neighboring business employees and residents to use the storage shop before and after these time periods, while also limiting potential traffic and noise to a reasonable time period. That is our recommendation. Our planning commission alternatives include 1, Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve site plan review 45819 to convert an existing medical office into a convenience market with the hours of operation limited to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and not a full 24-hour period as requested by the applicant. Or 2, the approval of site plan review 45819 to convert the existing medical center into a 24-hour convenience market. 3, other action is deemed appropriate by the Planning Commission. And 4, decline approval, site plan review 45819. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions of staff at this point?
Yeah. I have them.
Can I jump ahead of myself?
Nope, I'm just gonna go back to the photos for you guys.
Anyone have any questions of staff?
When was the original structure approved in the past? How long has it been around?
Oh, man, I didn't look into that.
Is it pre-zoning?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check with the assessor's office when it was built.
Okay.
I seem to recall that it was here when we moved to town in '76.
It's gotta be the
It's been
50s or
a long
60s.
time. Yeah, it's been there for quite a while. And the medical facility on the south side of the street there was originally a grocery store.
Yeah, that was the Hart's
No.
Market.
Yeah.
And then, so if I'm gathering right, there isn't going to be any landscaping required?
There are landscaping requirements, and they're further addressed in the staff report. I just referenced the section that they'll be within. It's just parking lot requirements right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the, I guess it's going to be the east side of the parking lot where that dwelling is there going to be any landscaping required on that portion?
I think some of those landscaping requirements did require buffers and going in, so.
Okay.
What are you referring to as the east side?
That, our right.
White building.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
I think that building's a medical office right now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
It's a business.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
Anybody have anything else? Okay. At this point, does anyone wish to testify in favor of the application? The applicant, would you like to come up and give us your name and give us your address?
Hi everyone, name is Joseph Singh, and the address is 1015 Walnut Street, The Dalles, Oregon. Like everybody already knows, the property across the street was already a grocery store. That's one of the reasons I think that area needs a grocery store. And we opened up a store on the west side of The Dalles, and everybody, the reason it's a 24-hour store is the reason we want to put it there, because we want to put a 24-hour store there. And it's because we've had a lot of support from a lot of people, especially for people that on the east side, they found out that we are open 24 hours. So we've had a lot of people come over, even councils, councilors and the mayor and a lot of the city people and the police officers. A lot of those people have come up and just wanted us to put something on the east side. That was the main reason for deciding on this location here. That's the furthest east we could go, and that's the main reason. And it's the same kind of overlay that we have on the west side. And the requirements the city had, or the council put forward, we tried meeting all of them, and I think we did. And we haven't had any concerns since then, garbage or traffic or any of that. We found our way around all those problems. And I am sorry for the inconvenience. You know, everybody's here because of this, so and that's it.
Before you sit down, does anyone in the commission need to ask some questions? Pardon the applicant.
Does it have to be open 24 hours?
There are stores on that side that are open, I think, till 9 or 10 o'clock right now. I mean, we could be open till 9 o'clock. The whole idea of the market is that we want to be convenient for those at nighttime. That's the whole point. A lot of these people have come up to us because they want a 24-hour location there. People that get off work late, they need milk or they need bread or whatever. And then also, especially like when it's snowing or it's, cold, people don't want to go that far, especially because things are closed actually at nighttime. They need medicine, their kids have toothache, or we sell a lot of medicine at nighttime. And a lot of the essentials, like those, are things that people need after everything is closed. And especially because sometimes people need dinner or something to eat and they can't find a place that's open. So we have a lot of that traffic that comes in at nighttime for just those reasons. So that's why it's kind of essential to be 24 hours, because the reason we want to put a 24-hour location there is because those people that come in, they have those needs for after hours when everything else is closed.
Is this store going to also include fresh produce, produce
Produce?
and meat and stuff like that, or just
We
convenience?
do have frozen meats and we do have fresh produce.
Oh, okay.
We have fruits and produce. We've tried it at the other market, and when there is a requirement, we bring in whatever the people want. 'Cause that's another thing that we have, is we have a list of things that people want us to carry, and we bring those in. And if that's something that's required, even by the council, or the people in the community want us to have more produce, or, whatever else, it's really there for the people around the business.
How many parking spaces do you have at the West Side Market?
I think we have 10 or 11, I think. They're mostly the ones in the front get used. The rest of them are the ones on, what side would that be? The Walnut Street side, because the front of the building is on the other side, so everybody actually parks in the front. The other side gets mostly used by the employees or the deliveries. But I think it's about 11. I think 7 on this side and about 5 on the other side.
And do you find those full a lot, or?
Only at twice or so in the daytime, like between like the people when they're getting off work. That's when they're kind of full, which is between 4 and 8 o'clock. That's when people are going home and they want to. That's why people always think like, oh, you're really busy. It's like, no, we just got busy because people are getting off work. They're going home. So that's when they get full.
Your current store is 24 hours, right, on the
It is,
side?
yes.
And have you had any incidents or
Like which kind?
like disruptions and having to call the police or, people things?
Well, she never have to call the police because the police is always there. That's like the one thing, like the whole police officers, everybody knows that the convenience market is there, so they're there like, all night basically putting rounds. But we never had to call. A couple of times we did have, I think it's just customers having issues, like somebody, what was it, like somebody left their car on and somebody got into their car and took their car.
Oh, okay.
So things like that happen, but those happen anywhere. But and there have been incidents where people, they come to the store and they steal. That's different. But nothing major has happened except the
Okay.
car theft.
And are you planning on following kind of the same layout and
Yeah, it's the
that
same.
you've got on the west side?
Basically the same layout. I think here we have more shelving because it's
Really?
the building is about the same size, but it's more shelving the way it's laid out, so it's more items.
Are there any other questions?
What steps will you be taking to ensure neighborhood safety?
We got a lot of lights, but like I said, once we're open, we have cameras everywhere. So police come to us if they even want to see who went by the road, and if they had an incident somewhere else and somebody passed by, they check our video because we have really good video, and we have a long time before that video recorded. Lighting depends on what the neighborhood requires, but we have good lighting. I think if you go up to the college and you look down, we're probably the building that has the most lights. But that area required more lighting because there's no street lighting there. And having that store there actually is beneficial to the community a lot more because people actually come and actually compliment us because now that we're there, cops are all there and we have cameras, and so whatever was happening there before, or if they had any incidents, now it's a lot less because of that. I think a lot of the officers would attest to that too.
So I imagine you get, at the other location on 10th, you get a lot of business as well from drivers coming through on 84, and they'll see.
So that location is a little bit different than this location here. That location is where the houses are, but they're all kind of up the hill, and the businesses are further out, so people have to drive to it. This location here actually already has all the people right there, all the businesses are right there, so they wouldn't be driving to the business, they'll just be walking to it. And a lot of the houses are right there, and if they know there's traffic, they're not going to drive their car, they just walk to it. So a lot of the apartments and a lot of those things, they're all kind of right there around the business. That's why we kind of picked that location. We could pick the location downtown, but that's the same scenario where a lot of people, even with the other locations, don't have cars or they can't drive, so they walk to the location.
I do have a question. Is it going to be possible to pull back out when you're leaving the market after having done business there, pull back out onto 12th Street without having to back out onto 12th Street?
So, yes, I've tried that a couple of times myself.
Yeah.
Backing it out.
Yeah.
And we are widening the entrance in and out.
Okay.
So we'll have one arrow going out, one arrow coming in, which makes it a little bit easier to maneuver. But it should not be a problem.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I tried it myself on both sides. So I think if we get that entrance widened, it should not be a problem.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for the time being.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify in favor of the application?
I have two additional comments that were for this application that they're not in attendance, but they asked for me to read their comments they
Yes, this
submitted.
would be the time to do that. Did they have them in writing, or they?
I have both of them in writing.
Okay, then we can submit those to the.
Yep,
for the
you
record.
guys, I think the planning commission has it submitted all in front of you. But the first is an email from Ted Lavelle, and he wished to convey, and I'm just going to read this, what he said, but I wish to convey my approval of having a convenience market at 1615 East 12th Street. It is far more earth-friendly to go a few blocks than several miles, and he lives off of Old Duffer Road. The second is from Brian Lauterbach, and he said, this town has been begging for a convenience store on the east side of the Dalles for a long time. Josan's asking for a store to be a 24-hour store, which I feel would actually bring more security to the neighborhood as it has around his store on the west side of town. Being one that lives near this site, I would like to support his model of business. So those are the two comments that I had as well. Thank you.
What do you want to set them up as exhibit A and B, or 1 and 2? Okay. Okay, do we have anyone who wishes to testify in opposition to the application? Okay, come up and give us your name and address for the record, please.
We're a couple, can we come together?
Can we
We can
handle
come
that?
separate if that's fine.
of your choice.
Okay, we'll
We'll do,
list you as a couple then. Just give us both names then and your address.
So I'm Lori Sam, and this is Cameron Sam.
I'm Cameron Sam.
excuse me, can you spell Lori?
Lori. And Sam, S-A-M. And Cameron with a K. We live at 1612 East 11th, and it is right up here. So this convenience store is literally going to be in our backyard. And I went to the planning office and read the comments, and I'm going to quote my neighbor, "Would you want a convenience store in your backyard?" So you have to forgive me, I have notes and they're kind of scattered. Last day of school before spring break, so it was an exciting day at work. Where should we start? Okay, so as far as needing a 24-hour store on the east side, Safeway is open till 1 and they open at 5. So they're within 5 minutes to go get whatever we need. Personally, I never use this kind of store. I've visited the Center Market on Walnut Street. It has the kind of food we don't buy. It has a lot of fried stuff. They sell cigarettes. We don't smoke. We do not use stores like this at all. So I do not see it ever meeting a need that we have. I don't believe you can compare the east side location with the west side location, because on Center Market, on Walnut, they have 2 sides of their building separate from houses. This facility there's 2 houses right there. They're directly next to it. So their neighbors are close. So there's no comparison between the locations because they've got a nice buffer on the Walnut Street location between the neighborhood and the store. This is right there. We have a problem with loitering in our neighborhood. Any loitering that goes on after dark is the kind you call the police about, and you get in the police report. There's a church across the street from our house. They are shut down by 9 or 10 o'clock, so there's no activity in the neighborhood. There's nothing open. The medical facilities, as you said, were open 8 to 5. So imagine going from neighbors, your business neighbors are medical offices who see a few patients at a time, who are quiet, and they're open banker's hours, and then all of a sudden going to a 24-hour possibility of people loitering. People cut through our backyard because they don't want to walk around 11th to 12th, so they go up the west side gate in our house and then hop our back fence to get to the stairs that lead up to this location. So that's been a problem. We've had to raise our gate, lock our gate. We have padlocks on our gates. So it's a direct security problem for us and our 2 children. And this has a direct impact on the privacy of our backyard. The extra lighting is going to shine right in our yard. Our son's bedroom faces the convenience store location. So light from the windows, I'm not sure how they're going to set up the inside, is going to shine into our backyard, ruining. I just feel like if you want to go out and enjoy a nice campfire or fire pit, it's not going to be an option because there's going to be light. There's going to be noise. Let's see. Okay, this is a big one. This location is on 2 major walkways to 2 schools, the middle school and Dry Hollow. So at dismissal time at the middle school, 3:15, there are dozens of kids walking past this location. That could be a potential safety hazard. People pulling out of the parking lots. Trust me, those kids are not watching when they cross these parking lots. And then kids walking home Dry Hollow Road to get to their homes. This poses a problem for me as we're a blue zone community, giving them healthy options. They're going to all shop at that store and load up on unhealthy things. So this is not a service that our community needs. Any needs we have by a local market are met by the market on Kelly Street, and they're open till 9. So any grocery needs that we haven't taken care of on our regular trips to the box stores, we can go down Kelly and use the market. So, want to add to that?
Nothing to add. We have submitted, council, we have submitted some comments already, additional to this. So, and they pretty much were more general. What my wife did here was more specific in regard to some of the concerns we have. And so just want to make sure you were aware of that.
You're in the staff report as well, so.
Do we have any questions?
I have a question about the people crossing your property. So you already have people crossing your property?
Yes, it's been a problem since we've moved there. So we've locked our gates and fixed our back fence and made it higher. Our west neighbor was just, if people want to cut through there, they do.
And I found evidence of, hopping the fence. Some of the wood has been broken on that fence I've replaced the last couple of years. So yeah, it seems to be a travel way. It's a convenience to get through there.
So what's the reason for that at this time?
When you're facing the back of the proposed location, there's a stairway on the west that leads to their parking lot. So rather than go around the block, our gate leads right to the stairs to get to the...
You can see the stairs from 11th Street.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because they're not there yet, what is causing people to do that already?
Good question.
I'm trying to get the,
It
connect the dots.
It happens at night. So
Oh, okay.
we usually have, not during the day, it happens at night. I've seen I've seen people jump the fence and turn lights on, and so it's, like I said, it's convenience to get through there.
Okay, thank you.
If the planning commission was, or the planning department was offering 9 o'clock closing, would that be better for you? Would that be worthwhile, or just no market at all?
There was a choice between we would choose 9 o'clock closing,
Yeah.
but our ultimate choice would be not to have the facility off.
And if you have 9 o'clock, then, you don't necessarily have, I don't know about the light situation and security, but you won't have necessarily the people around, and everything that comes with the people, noise and vehicles and perhaps loitering, that kind of thing, so.
Possible littering.
That's just security that we're worried about. The lights, I don't know about the lights, if it needs to be on 24 hours because of security, like other businesses, so they don't have break-ins. The building is higher in elevation than our house, so it's not the same level because of the elevation change between 12th and 11th. So it overlooks, so, if they leave the light on in the back window, for any reason in the doctor's office, or I don't know if it's still vacant or not, but when they used to do that, it used to shine right into our backyard. So, it's just the light issue, and so I'm not sure, what can be done about that as far as, like I said, you can't raise a fence high enough there, because then you won't be meeting city code. You can't, there's no way to put a barrier up that height because of the elevation change. 12 to 11.
And there's probably 6 stairs that you have to go up, so it's kind of almost like a split level. Their lower part of their building, the access to that's behind our house, behind our fence, and then you take those half a flight of stairs to the main floor. I've never actually been in the doctor's office, so I don't know.
Is there an alley down the middle of that block?
Not one accessible by a vehicle. It's closed in on the east by the yard of the close neighbor, and then our fence, and then there's kind of an ivy covered nothing. There's no vehicle access back there.
Seems like there's a right of way for access to sewer, manhole cover that's back there behind the doctor's office.
Do you feel if the windows on the back of the business were blacked out, that would help with light?
Well, the other question is it necessary to have the stair in there?
Well, that was there. I was there when we moved in, so that's, it's
I'm not sure.
part of the
Now, does
foundation.
that just go to the basement of this building, or is it part of a pedestrian?
Yes, it goes to the basement of the building, yeah.
Okay,
And
so it's
there's
not
a
part of
basement.
a pedestrian?
No pedestrian. It does access the basement, and there's a door there.
Okay, it's just the kids using that as a shortcut, okay.
It's
short
their
cut.
access to the back of their building.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
But that is the only access to that building.
So if you were, hypothetically, if you were proposing a business like this, what kind of safety measures would you take to ensure neighborhood safety?
To ensure neighborhood safety or ensure our safety?
Everyone, you included, yeah.
We have more fencing and locks and motion lights and.
Oh, I mean, no, sorry. If you were the ones running the business, if you were proposing it, what kind of safety measures would you take for the neighborhood?
So, you know, the loitering may be an issue, so we'd have some patrols, or at least maybe the walk around to make sure people aren't loitering. You know, a walk around, make sure that there was, no things happening, or, bad things or things happening around the building. Just kind of monitoring that, I think it was already brought up about cameras. That's probably a good thing to have. Lights, but like I said, what kind of lights would be? That's, so that nothing is going on. That happens after dark. So those, some of those things. What else?
Keeping customers in the front, the only access to that building that customers should be using is the front door. There's no business, they have no business going down the side.
So blocking that off.
Blocking that off and keeping people where they need to be. Yeah, that's what I would do if I was proposing that, yeah.
So if they had a gate on the west side of that building, so that people couldn't walk back there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be the same kind of thing, would be gates and, people control, yeah, sure.
Are there any more questions?
We appreciate the council hearing us.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition to? Okay, come up and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Mark Sundberg. I live at 1531 East 12th. I live just 4 houses down from the,
Excuse me, I didn't get your last name.
I'm sorry, I'll speak a little quick. Sundberg, S-U-N-D-B-E-R-G. So, like I said, I live just 4 houses down. And,
To the west?
yes, I apologize, just to the west there. And, well, I don't know, I wish him well in business, but I have to play devil's advocate as a homeowner in the area, and I just have to think of the worst possible scenario. My big concern is property values. So like, is this, I'm sure when it opens, it's gonna be a bright shining star, but 5, 10 years from now, who knows what it's gonna be? And I have to think of my property values when this thing is approved. Are they gonna decrease? And then all the hard work that I put in, I bought this house 14 years ago, and put a lot of blood, sweat and tears in this house, and to see that value decrease just sucks. So another concern I have is parking and traffic. In this location, I mean, I know you can see the across the street. This portion of 12th Street is very congested as it is right now with that clinic. And to add that much more congestion in that area, and I'm sure the neighbors on the other side there would agree with me that, who knows, people might not want to park in the parking lot, they might want to just stop on the street and then be on their merry way, so, I mean, there could be a lot of potential parking on that street, so. Another one is, currently right now, with the 2 schools, kids litter. I get a lot of litter in my yard, and with the market coming into the neighborhood, I can't see that getting any better. I don't mind picking up a little trash here in my yard. But, I've heard stories of when, was it Deerheart? Deerheart's?
Yeah, it used to be the New Hearts Market, was now the medical.
It was so bad that one of the neighbors actually chained up a garbage can to a light pole, just so that the kids would use or I shouldn't just say kids, people used the trash can instead of just littering in the yards. So I have that concern. You know, I know this isn't a residential area, but I look at downtown, there's plenty of vacant businesses downtown that, you know, I know for one, my wife works at Montero's, and Montero's grocery store down there, you know, I'm sorry to say they closed, but that's a viable location on the east side for a convenience store. So maybe we should keep the commercial in the commercial and keep the residential quiet. Sorry, I'm not the greatest at public speaking. I'm just kind of short to the point. But that's my 2 cents on the matter.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor? Or, excuse me, opposed? Sorry. Got you off guard, didn't I?
No, I'm going to sit back down. My name's Lisa Chambers. I live at, could I get you to move your slide to the next one?
Oh, yeah.
Please. Okay, this is where he's proposing it. This is my neighbor Lori. This is my lot right here, so essentially it's in my backyard as well. And so,
I need your address.
1620 East 11th.
Thank you.
I liked what this gentleman said about property values. I did a little research on the internet to research what it does to your property values, and I didn't really come up with that it decreased it a lot. It definitely didn't increase your value with more traffic around your home. As far as convenience stores in our neighborhood, we're right up Dry Hollow. Denty's is right downtown. It's not far to Safeway or Fred Meyer's, and they're open until 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night. I guess my biggest concern is that the light that probably would be emitted from this building would shine in my backyard as well. And when I go to bed at night, I don't really want a large light shining through the windows. I'm concerned about loitering in the neighborhood. If there was more traffic to a 24-hour convenience store. There was some mention about limiting the hours of operation on a convenience store, and my thought is, yes, you could limit that. I would prefer that versus 24 hours. However, I believe that if you still allow for deliveries at night, there's still going to be that added noise. You're going to have semis pulling in. And there's a potential for robberies and burglaries because there's more people frequenting that neighborhood area. There would be more traffic and possibly more accidents because of, could we go back to that other slide, please? So I've frequented this office here, Dr. Schwartz's office, and this entrance here is very narrow. And as you can see right here, parking is pretty limited, and these people are double parked right here, and that's probably, it's just not a big parking lot. So like the other gentleman said, there's lots of businesses that are open during the day, like medical buildings, and that street does get busy, so I just don't think it's very good access. And I think lastly, maybe two more things, blocking off the access to the back, because this building here, this is a house, and you could walk right back here, and our property joins the fence line there, and then there's also a walkway there, and then we go into my neighbor's backyard. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is that as far as convenience stores on the east side, Poppy's Market, that's been there for years, is currently for sale, so perhaps the applicant could look at something that's for sale that's already a market, and in opposition of the convenience store.
Any questions?
Oh. Any questions? No questions?
I think you're safe. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Come on, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi. Sorry, my throat's dry. Mark Smith, 1530 East 12th. What I have to say is pretty much a lot of what you've already heard. A lot of the same things, which is, one, the parking. He mentioned that he was going to widen the parking lot, but because of the medical facility, both sides of that road is already got cars lined all the way down, and I'm about, I don't know, if Dry Hollow East, I guess I'm right here. And so he would be here, I'm about 3 or 4 houses down across the street. And as it is already, we get a lot of cars parking in front of our house. So we have a hard time. Luckily, we have a garage on the side street, but we have more than one car, so it's just the parking is not going to be good. That is a very small parking lot, as she stated. Cars trying to back out, turn around, get onto 12th Street, especially during the daytime hours when the cars are going to be right up to the parking lot. Another thing was, one of the gentlemen mentioned in his letter that it would be nice to have a store on the east side. Just a few blocks down on Kelly, we have another store. I can't remember the name of it. Everybody kind of refers to it as the Hispanic store. And then right down below Dry Hollow, down Brewery Grave, we got Denty's. They're open till 10 o'clock every night. So that's two pretty close convenience stores. Right there, plus Poppy's, like they said, would be another location for him to go. So, schools, we got the high school and the middle school. We get a lot of kids walking by the house. Again, as somebody mentioned, the litter. I was the one with the garbage can tied to the telephone pole. It did not work. Very few kids, very few people used it. I take a lot of pride in my yard. As they said, it's a high residential area. We'd like to keep it that way. I really don't want to have to continually pick up garbage and empty bottles and cans out of my front yard. I don't have my glasses here, just a second. Again, he mentioned how people love it on the other side, on the west side. I'm sure they do love his store. The way it faces, as she mentioned, there's nobody on the sides of his business. I remember correctly, I think it faces across the baseball field. In this case, it would not be. We have a lot of bright lights, at night. Me, myself, I work rotating 12-hour shifts, days and nights. So I try to sleep in the daytime. I think the amount of increased kids going to the store and for myself would not be good. Property values, as Mark mentioned, how do we know that's not going to decrease, over time? And another one was businesses downtown. When I go down 2nd Street or some of the side streets, I see plenty of businesses there that are vacant, which actually makes me kind of sad that we have so many down there that we can't keep people in. And hopefully, if that was something he would be able to do, I would hope it would do good. Again, lighting, that was mentioned. How bright are those lights going to be? Being in a residential neighborhood and again working rotating shifts, am I going to have to put something in my windows just to keep the lights from shining in, because I can't look out my windows there and see his store kitty corner. So security, he mentioned that the police are always there. that kind of scares me that they're not out, driving around town, but we wouldn't need to have them if it wasn't there. So I think with the increased people in the neighborhood, you're always going to get that kind of thing. There's no way to stop any of that. There's no way to control litter. It's just going to happen. So I don't think how many safety things you put in place, it's still going to be there. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
I'll repeat kind of what I asked earlier. If it was you proposing this business in this location, what kind of measures would you take to mitigate any effects to the neighborhood or for safety?
I don't think, other than the basic, security things for your store, that you could do anything to prevent things from happening. So I don't think there's any real measures that you could take to completely stop this. I too ran a business here in town for many years, a retail pharmacy store, and I saw it every day, every single day. So I kept the police pretty busy. So I don't think there is any measures that you could do to prevent it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the proposal?
I would like to. Clyde Boddington, and I live at 1311 View Court. I want to present a question to you. If that, you put in a store, does that make that area a commercial zone?
It is right now. There's a commercial overlay in that zone.
Well, could they put marijuana in that store?
Not an allowed use in the neighborhood center zone. And I can verify that right now too if you want.
Can you state your name for the record again? Sorry, she didn't get it.
Clyde Boddington, Boddington.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's not an allowed use in that zone. It doesn't meet the separation requirements for the commercial between the residential zone. So no, it does not allow for that.
Could it be changed?
No.
No.
Not, no.
That was my question.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the application? Going once, twice? Does anyone just wish to ask questions? That doesn't necessarily feel one way or the other? If not,
I had a question. Earlier you
you better give us your name and address again. You want full credit for this, don't you?
Sure. Lisa Chambers, I live at 1620 East 11th. Earlier you had talked about somebody that had wrote in a letter of support, and they live on Old Duffer Road. So I didn't know how they knew about the store, because initially you sent it to 100 feet, within 100 feet, and then I think the law says you have to send it to people within 300 feet that are affected. So how much does that letter weigh in when that guy doesn't even live in our neighborhood?
Gene, you want to?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood the question.
So I think she's trying to understand how someone on Old Duffer Road heard about the proposal.
It's the Dells.
It could have been that it was published, I think, in the newspaper.
Is that correct?
So,
Well, it was a letter in support, but initially you guys were asking, or the city was asking for people in opposition, or if you were supporting the convenience store, in a letter by the people that were affected in the immediate neighborhood. And so my assumption was that you would take the letters of the people affected and determine your decision based on that, not by somebody that lives on Old Newport Road saying they want a convenience store.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, the notice is also posted for the public and the people who are residents of the city to be able to weigh in. And have you tried to keep a secret in the Dalles?
And usually,
That answers my question. I just wondered why that
Yeah.
was added to the record.
We've already asked for those in opposition to, and this was just an open question, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we need to give the applicant the right of rebuttal. If you've got anything you'd like to say. You might give us your name and address again.
Joseph Singh, 1015 Walnut Street. The lighting on the building is one of the concerns that a lot of people had, was the lighting of the building. It's not going to be anywhere else behind or on the sides, it'll just be the front. And then the building codes department is pretty good about what kind of lighting is required or could be put in a neighborhood zone. It's usually like a recessed into a canopy light that can only point down. It has to be a certain lumens, so it can't be bothering everybody else in the neighborhood. So that kind of building codes makes sure that nobody else is bothered by the building. And the traffic of the cars, it's all going to be, it's already traffic there. Like a lot of people know, the cars are always going on the road. There'd be no more herd inside than it would already be herd inside. As far as the window on the back, there will be no window on the back of the building. Those would all be closed off. And the stairs, I was wondering about that when we looked at the building in the back. There was I think it's kind of like a door on the side. Not sure if it's a fence or somebody just made a door out of it. It seems like it was accessible to go in and out. Just a vague memory of what it looked like. But that's all construction part of it. If that's the case, the security is the problem when people are walking onto that area. It's all fenceable. And also that part on the side of that business is also the county owns that part, so we can't really build on it, but we can definitely help secure the backyards of people. So there'd be no lighting, once again, shining in the back. Again, when this market is not for inconveniencing anybody, it's mostly for convenience, and we want to make sure anybody around it, we can try solving as many issues as we can with that, and be active on making sure, helping the community around as much as possible, figuring out solutions to any other problems that might occur. So we're there listening to.
So it sounds like you're willing to talk with the neighbors and working out some solutions for their problems.
Things that I can, yes, like the fencing or the lighting, things like that I can, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions of the applicant at this point? Thank you very much. Okay, do you have any questions of staff?
For the condition related to outdoor lighting, does that fully capture restricting lighting being directed on neighboring properties?
I believe so. There's some language in here about illumination onto, illuminating across the property boundary line within the code, how it limits that and how it's not supposed to be happening. And so definitely, like this talks about the property line will not exceed an average horizontal foot candle of 0.3 for non-cutoff lights and 1 for cutoff lights. And so it kind of goes further into that section and evaluating the lighting and stuff going across the
Can you
boundary line.
describe what cutoff lights and non-cutoff cut off lights are?
I can't, I don't know.
I think that.
Sorry, that's more of a.
Switch on it.
Okay.
Yeah. There also is another condition in here that I wanted to point out that addresses activity. I think I kind of went over this, but activity including noise, glare, dust, and vibration, smoke, odor, any allowable levels determined by local state standards shall not be allowed, so that's also within this. I also wanted to bring, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but that the applicant had stated that deliveries would be limited to one time a day, between the hours of 7 and 5 p.m.
When we went over the rules, I guess, for lighting and noise and all that, it's pretty restrictive and very focused on a focused area, right? So they're pretty, if I recall, they were very clear that you couldn't bleed over into other areas. And they were just there for the safety of that particular area. So that shouldn't go in the back if they're in the front of the building, because the radiuses that are in the rules wouldn't allow that to happen, right? Am I saying that right, Steve?
If I may, Chair, Madam Commissioner, there are questions about the lighting and these are our lighting standards in our development code. And essentially, the fixtures that would be placed on the building are the type which the lights would be shielded, so it would prevent that overflow into overspill on existing or adjacent properties. With the various what's allowed, the maximum illuminations, it's in foot candles, and so what it does, essentially it is built in somewhat perhaps like a can with a recessed light. So the light would shine down or onto the building but not spill over into adjacent properties. So the intent would hopefully not be able to shine in those bedroom windows. And as far as security measures, there was various items that were talked about, and I think we could work with the applicant, and perhaps the applicant could work with the neighbors as well. And we could also work with our police department on what type of security measures that they would recommend. And if that rear gate access isn't necessary, or fencing access, maybe that's something also that could be restricted, eliminated, or perhaps a new fence installed or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So in the instance where lighting is installed, let's say a neighbor does complain about it, our code compliance officer, do they have a way of going on site and measuring that?
We don't have a light meter itself within the department, but we would get a chance to review those building plans prior to the submission to building codes, and there would be the specifications on the fixtures and the foot candles on the plans themselves.
Okay.
I think the key to this is that it sounds like the city, the applicant, and the neighbors could get together and work on a mutual, hopefully something that's mutually beneficial to all. I mean, we've done it in the past. I mean, it's something. Do the commissioners feel that you have enough information to make a decision at this point?
So, yes.
I have a question that's been germinating in my mind after hearing a lot of this that I'd like to ask the applicant, if possible.
The hearing is still open. We haven't closed it yet, so.
Basically, a lot of deliveries are by semi-trucks, and
could you come back up to the microphone, please?
And the access to the front of that building is rather small. I know semi-trucks quite frequently double park on streets and so forth to unload.
I've talked to a few delivery people already. They do have access to smaller trucks, so you don't need to bring a semi up there.
So everything would be offloaded in the parking lot?
They would, yeah, basically like a U-Haul size truck, it'll be backed into the parking lot and be offloaded.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's your consensus? consensus at this point?
Well, if we wanted to,
Well, I need to close the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
So we can deliberate, and we need to know whether we're ready to close the public hearing.
I
Yeah.
think so.
I'm good.
Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, and what do you think?
I think we should at least limit the hours. I don't think an all-night thing would be appropriate. 7 to 10 at night maybe. I think that's gonna be where most of your business is gonna come in anyway.
I think that this is in keeping with what we're being advised by, in the housing, the new way of looking at the community, even like the blue zones, that, like being able to walk to a local market, being able to be more regional, being able to have services intermixed in residential areas is where we're, kind of being guided as the new healthier way to have a community operate. So I think it's an excellent idea. I'm also, I was shocked when I went to the location on the west side because it was not what I expected at all in a convenience store. It was very kind of inconspicuous and not intrusive. I was, and really fairly nice and fun inside. So as an operator, I think we already have a test of how this owner would work with the community and fitting in. So I think that's kind of good. And I've missed the market in that corner for a very long time. So I would really like one, but, and I also have used, just as Mr. Singh has said, I have used frequently all-night markets for emergencies when my kids were little, right? It's like, they don't get the toothache or the stomachache or run out of baby aspirin in the middle of the day. They do it at night. So I kind of think it's a cool idea to have, open our horizons just a little bit. What else could go, I do have a question though. What else, because we always get this, it's a planning commission idea or a issue or it's not. So what else would go in that location that would just go in, because it's going to be commercial, I would assume someone's not going to buy it and turn it into a house.
Yeah, so I can kind of read the whole list of allowed uses for that neighborhood center zone if you guys want. But the commercial uses kind of range from child care center, financial institution, food services, which could include a restaurant, cafe, bakery, catering, takeout operations. It just would have to exclude a drive-through. You could have a commercial amusement, which could include a bowling alley, not more than 12 lanes, billiard halls with no more than 6 tables and game rooms, indoor pet store, indoor small vet, laundromat, dry cleaner, light manufacturing, market, grocery store, medical and dental offices, clinics, labs, personal care services such as barber shops and salons, professional and administrative offices, public and private parking lots and parking structures, repair services, residential care facility, wireless communication facilities, and then other uses that might be determined by the director to be similar to those. So.
And essentially, the only reason it's coming to us is because it's a more intense use.
And more of the 24-hour nature of it.
And if it was for any other proposed use that wasn't going 24 hours or as intense of a use, what application route would it go through?
It would go before site plan review, so the same as this. This has just been elevated for the 24-hour convenience aspect of it, for opening 24 hours.
Okay. I think it's really important with this decision, seeing as how there is residential development so close, there's definitely going to be an effect on the neighborhood. I think it's really important to incorporate the neighbors' concerns into our decision. I would consider additional conditions that we've heard at the hearing. And keeping in touch with the Blue Zones, I don't know if we can require more produce, but it's really good to hear of a market in town that will hear the needs of a community, and if they want it in that location, they'll bring it to that location for them. So I do agree with, convenience market food usually isn't the greatest, but if a place is willing to add that to their business, I mean, that's a positive.
Is it legitimate to ask a question of staff at this point? Why did you determine to go 7 to 9? Was there any rationale behind choosing a 9?
I was between 7 and 9 because I thought that, the surrounding businesses that exist in the area, they're open between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.-ish. But that allows for those employees that are using those existing businesses in the area, it allows them to go and stop at the market beforehand and after the fact. So whenever they are going to work, they can stop beforehand or after they get off work, so.
Yeah, somebody on the commission had suggested maybe 7 to 10. I mean, is it? That fits in with what your concept was.
But
Okay.
I think the market down, Dente's, I think they closed at 10.
But what's the point of the whole point is that it's 24 hours. I mean, we don't,
Well, does it
My
have to be
concern would-
24 hours there? I mean, you could go to Fred Meyer's, I think they're open.
but I don't want to go to Fred Meyer's. I want to,
Well, if you want it in your backyard, I mean, that's.
actually, I would be perfectly happy with it in my backyard. I would be perfectly happy walking over to the market and getting what I need. So, yeah. But then I live 2 doors down from the high school, so I have lots of things going on in my front yard and across the street from a church and right on a busy intersection. And I sympathize with trash and all those kind of things that happen, right? It's, you get a little upkeep that comes along with that location, but yeah, I'm weird. I would think it would be cool.
I have a question. I believe I should ask staff. My question is, what remedy would the community have if the change in traffic became egregious?
I think that would be probably something we'd work with our transportation planner to figure
Right.
out at Public Works.
Wouldn't you want to have that worked out before you approved a market there, though? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe anecdotally, I will say, at other convenience stores in this town, I have noticed that the residences that are on the same street as that convenience store can get kind of aggressive towards people pulling in and out of the store because they resent the additional traffic and they resent the obstruction. And they just want to go home and they don't want to have to wait for somebody to back out. And it gets to be tense at times. I don't know if that would happen here. I'm not supposing that. I'm just saying, if it did, what remedy would they have?
Commissioner, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
I'm asking, suppose that the commission were to, follow your recommendations and allow whatever it is that your recommendations are. And as a result of that business going into place, it became evident that there were above-average traffic problems.
Well, if it does become a traffic issue, the city does have a traffic safety committee or commission. It meets on a regular basis, and it looks at situations just like this. If there are traffic issues in a particular neighborhood, whether it's through a particular use or just because it's an arterial or collector or another street that has a lot of traffic and there's potential conflicts or left turn lane, left turn movements or driveways. So we do have that avenue. And they do review on occasion particular properties and uses. And they could recommend a host of various traffic calming measures if needed. If there was a question about the loading and the unloading and the trucks in the parking lot, an item before them could be to designate the curb in front of the proposed store as a loading zone. And so you would eliminate or potentially eliminate those conflicts of delivery trucks backing out of the parking lot onto the street. There could also be some limitation of maybe perhaps 20-minute parking or something right in front of the store as well. And that would kind of also address potential visibility issues of cars coming in and out. It is, the streets are meant for travel, whether it's vehicular, pedestrian, or bicyclists, and streets are also meant for on-street parking as well. Our suggestion about limiting the hours was because it is in close proximity to residential uses. This does have a neighborhood commercial overlay zone, which does allow for a variety of light intense commercial and office uses. And as stated earlier, the intent of these neighborhood center overlay zones is to allow and permit a wide variety of services for that neighborhood. This particular type of a market, quite frankly, I don't think you would have people driving across town to use it. I would most likely you would have people using it who currently reside or work in the neighborhood, or they are driving from point A to point B along this way and they would stop. It's pass-by traffic.
Right.
I don't think this particular location and the market on the west side, I don't think that's a particularly good example. Perhaps that market's an entirely different location.
Right.
The neighborhood, so perhaps that market on the west side, being a 24-hour operation, has minimal impacts or less impacts on adjacent uses. In this particular case, because there are homes in the immediate vicinity, we thought limiting the hours to less than 24 hours per day was a reasonable accommodation. And our suggested condition of 9 p.m., quite frankly, it could be 8 p.m. or 10 p.m., perhaps 10 p.m., maybe a little late. We're, again, being so close to a residential neighborhood. And as far as the suggested conditions, we do have development standards within our code that discuss landscaping and lighting and other operational aspects that they will have to adhere to.
Dry Hollow does have a center turn lane. Both up going up or down Dry Hollow, so you've already got that.
So I sit on Traffic Safety Committee as well. It's riveting 7 a.m. meetings once a month if folks ever want to come and visit and talk to us. I will say Dry Hollow and 12th comes up a lot in conversation. Either folks not seeing the stop sign, blowing right through it. There are some traffic issues in that area. And I don't know how the TSP has identified it, but it doesn't seem like a business like this, it would cause too much more traffic than what's already in that area.
Right.
So,
It's close enough from our place, we could bicycle to it, and get by with, probably wouldn't even get the car out.
yeah.
Which is kind of the point of a neighborhood market, right? Is to get people
Yeah.
out of their car.
But again,
Probably not going to do bicycle over there too in the morning.
again, though, I think it's really,
Summertime I might.
it's important to incorporate the public's concerns as well into our decision.
Absolutely.
Where do we go from here? entertain a motion?
Is now the time to make motions for
Well, we're-
additional conditions, or?
Yep, we closed the public hearing. This is our time of deliberation.
Well, I'd like to propose approving it with the condition that they only operate from 7 to 9.
It's as presented.
Yeah, as presented.
Okay, does someone want to entertain a second?
I would second that motion.
And was that with the other 7 conditions besides number 8?
Yeah. I would second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded.
Can I make a motion to amend that? I think it's really important to have some conditions in there to fully incorporate the community's concerns.
That's a little harder to do. I mean, we basically got a commitment, at least from the applicant and the planning department, to do that with the neighborhood, with neighbors.
I think you would have to identify what the concerns are and then maybe suggest some language if that's what you want to do, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you can certainly try to offer that to identify what concerns you would like to see addressed and then see whether we can create something like, I don't know, whether we can or not, but we need to identify what the concerns are and then.
Okay.
The city really historically has been very good at mediating those kind of discussions with the applicants and the neighbors. I mean, it's something that they have done well in the past.
Okay.
At least I feel.
Especially with light.
Huh?
Especially with light.
Oh, yeah.
And well, some of the concerns I was going to address were either, blacking out the back windows so that no light shines on to adjacent properties.
The applicant has already said that they would.
Okay.
They we're going to plan to have the light come out the back. So I think it sounds like there's plenty of impetus to do that. I don't want to discourage what you're saying, but
I discount the 2 letters that we got because neither of the people live nearby.
but they would be people that would use the market.
They probably would use the market, yes.
And therefore they have some say in it.
Some say.
At what point, if ever, does the business have the ability to get the hours questioned or extended?
I guess they'd have to come back to us.
Would that be a revision?
Sorry. So at a later date, they are able to come to us and request a modification to the hours of operation, and it would likely come before Planning Commission again, or the applicant can appeal the decision made tonight, too.
I think it's acceptable to go with the 7 to 9, and then at a later date, if they wish to stay open later.
Okay. I think that we need to, I think, well, it doesn't matter.
And there was a
I don't
motion
like the
to,
hour restriction. I think 7 to 9 is extremely.
you had a motion to amend, so there wasn't a second, so I assume that motion
So I'm
now dies. Or
very uncomfortable with that.
You're correct, no.
Okay, I just-
And he was forming an amendment to it, but we never got to
Yeah, we never
actually
got.
generating.
Right, okay.
We're still debating ourselves.
Are you ready for a vote? Okay, now remember, you gotta hold your hand up long enough for the clerk to determine who did it. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Is that a maybe?
Okay. Yeah, I am.
That's an aye. Thank you.
You get it?
I did. Well,
Opposed?
got it.
Okay. So now you guys could work with the city and the the applicant to try to alleviate your problems as a community.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, this item is appealable to the city council. The planning commission's decision this evening, either by the applicant or other parties of interest.
So we usually come up with better solutions if we can work together. Okay? We're moving on.
You are so not gonna make me go.
What's that?
I know. Pickleball will be over before we are.
Yeah.
At least this time I'm not getting phone calls. Plus my wife fell on it.
Okay.
System working overtime again.
Our next item on the agenda is our legislative public hearing. Application number, comprehensive plan amendment, CPA 44-19 and zoning ordinance amendment, ZOA 98-19 by Wilcox. Okay, the request to approve a change in zoning of one parcel from CG General Commercial to RM Medium Density Residential and comprehensive plan use designation to of commercial to medium density residential. Location of the property is located at 745 Lee Street and is further described as 2N 13E 29 DB tax lot 200 and is zone CG General Commercial Comprehensive Plan land use designation of commercial. I guess it's up to
I just had a question. I see that this is listed as a quasi-judicial hearing, but I also understand it has a legislative component, but I wondered
The
since it
legislative
is...
public hearing is what the agenda says.
Okay, the staff report referred to quasi-judicial, but if it's not, then we don't have to go through the conflict question, so.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, if it is strictly legislative, that's correct. The only thing you would have to disclose then is any commissioner would have any possibility of financial interest in the project or would benefit perhaps. I assume none of you have any connection to this property where you wouldn't have any personal financial interest that would need to be disclosed. Okay. Sorry, Mark.
No, you're fine. So this request is for a zone change from the general commercial or the CG zone to the RM medium density residential zone and a comprehensive plan land use designation amendment from commercial to RM medium density zone. The subject property is located at 745 Lee Street. And you can kind of see the star on the subject property. All adjacent uses to this house right now are residential. The existing house as it is a single-family dwelling. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning from the CG General Commercial Zone to the RM Medium Density Residential Zone as it's adjacent to the RM zoning. And also the applicant is proposing, she would like to do a duplex. And right now, for multi-housing to be an allowed use in the general commercial zone, would require a ground floor of a commercial use. So she technically could not have a multifamily use in the zoning as of now, until she changes that to an RM medium density zoning.
Can I ask a quick question? Do any of you have involvement in this?
Yes.
Why don't you come up and sit up front? Because we want you to get involved in this discussion, since it is essentially a public hearing. I'd like to, as long as you feel like you can get involved in the process.
My voice carries real well. I could have gotten.
Oh, great. And when we talk about public hearings, you are the public, and so you're part of the hearing, so.
Thank you.
So notice of the request was sent out to property owners within 300 feet. As of the writing of the agenda, no comments were received in regards to this application. As I stated before, the applicant is seeking to change the zoning of the property to bring the residential use essentially even into conformance, because right now we only require residential use, as I stated, unless the ground floor is a commercial use. The applicant has stated she's currently, it's a pretty big house, pretty big floor area, and she's going to be filling in an existing ground floor pool. And underneath, having just one or single-family residential unit just doesn't make sense for the space. As I stated, the adjacent properties to the north and the west are within that medium-density residential zone, and to the south and east are within that CG general commercial zone. Future developments of the site would be limited by the RM medium-density residential zone standards. The rezoning requests. The proposed zone change would have to conform to the transportation plan and other provisions of the land use code by maintaining the residential character of the neighborhood instead of requiring the commercial development, which would potentially result in more trips generated and have higher impact to this existing residential network streets. Lee Street currently does not extend all the way through to West 6th Street. This would require commercial development on the ground floor in order to have a residential use to result in more traffic in a neighborhood where all adjacent uses are currently residential. By allowing for the applicant to change the zoning to the RM medium density residential zone, the applicant could provide for another dwelling unit. Right now, the applicant could potentially have an accessory dwelling unit in addition to her single-family dwelling, but that would be limiting in size to 600 square feet. And she would have to be able to live on site in that existing single-family dwelling. Sorry. In addition to being a zone change, it would have to be a change to our comprehensive plan. Currently, I didn't include the map in here, but currently this is the mapping from this is our general zoning from the code. The comprehensive plan map shows basically everything in the green as a commercial and everything to the adjacent in the RM zone. The only difference is the name of it essentially is general commercial versus commercial in the comprehensive plan.
So essentially, she'd be converting it from the green to whatever the color is, the pink kind of color you got.
Correct.
So it's really no big deal.
So the implementation measures of Goal 9 for economic development include the West 6 Gateway area, which the subject property is located within. One of these measures ensures that future improvements and land use changes within this area would provide adequate sound, light, and visual buffers to adjacent residential areas. By keeping the subject property in the general commercial zone, the applicant would be required to have a commercial use in order to provide any residential use. The surrounding properties, again, to the north, east, south, and west are all used for residential purposes. Being able to allow for residential uses without commercial use by changing the zoning to RM, medium-density residential, would maintain adequate sound and light levels and not have to require any visual buffers. In 2018, we currently had a House Bill 40006 that required the State Housing Community Service Department to annually provide to each city with populations over 10,000 data showing the percentage of renter households that are severely rent burdened. The city of The Dalles was listed as one of those cities. Therefore, allowing the applicant to change the zoning to allow for multifamily would create an additional dwelling unit as a step forward towards improving the rental housing in a limited market. So I'm kind of going to go over the staff recommendation is that the Planning Commission sign the resolution number PC 580-19 to recommend approval to City Council of the zone change ZOA 98-19 and comprehensive plan amendment CPA 4419 and to forward to City Council for review and adoption. Your other options include denying the request or 3, directing staff as otherwise appropriate.
Anybody have any comments, questions?
Against it?
I don't think it makes a difference in this case. I mean, what do you? what do you-
Oh, okay.
You can,
Are you,
All right.
My name's Pat Combs. I've lived at 733 Lee Street since 1976. Mr. Hester lives at 729. He's a long-haul trucker, called me today to speak for him. He is absolutely against having this house that was originally the same as all the other houses in this housing development that was built in 1952. My house, 733, is 680 square feet, and that includes the built-on garage. So all of the houses that are there on this dead-end street, on Lee Street, were all built in 1952 at the same time for the dam workers. As she said, all of the parking there is as full as it can get. It's a dead-end street. Every house there, except for hers, has 2 cars. 1 car in the driveway, another car out front. If we were told by the workmen that that house is going to be turned into a triplex with an office in the back where the pool is for commercial use, that would mean that that 600 and some odd square foot original house is going to have 2 more kitchens and 2 more bathrooms. The bathroom in my house, her house, and her house all are big enough to walk in, turn around, and walk back out. I really question where they're going to be able to park, how they're going to get that many people into that small of square feet, and it just does not seem possible to me for that to be turned into multi-housing development and for our street to maintain the way it is now, that it is a nice, quiet, dead-end street. It has 1 rental house that is directly across from my house.
And I'm right next door.
And the one next door, but the one right across from me, this one, has been a drug house for the past 10 years. The owner just doesn't care. And the owner doesn't live here, she just doesn't care. The other thing is, we don't have, I'm a widow that live on a death pension. We don't have curbs and sidewalks there. The city at one time wanted to put curbs and sidewalks in there, and it was so expensive that at that point, several of us would have lost our homes having to pay for them. And if there has to be new sidewalks and entryways put in front of these houses, those of us on this side of Lee Street, if we have to put them back here and back there, that's going to cost more than our houses are worth, because they're not worth very much. So those are some of my concerns, and I've lived there longer than anybody that is still surviving at this point. But these other 2 ladies also have houses there.
Y'all got any questions for him?
Can we ask questions?
yes, we can ask questions. I mean, it's.
So is your only concern that someone's going to make you put in a sidewalk?
No. No.
Taxes?
parking? There's also parking in there.
Taxes, traffic?
Does,
Go ahead.
so we're looking at a duplex, not a triplex or offices or any of that, right? We're looking at a
Well,
duplex?
that's not what we were told.
I think you might have been
Taylor?
misinformed a little bit.
I'm Mary Jo Taylor. I live at 740 Lee Street, and mine's this one right here, and I'm across there. My concern is, a few years ago, kind of not by choice, we were voted into the city limits requiring that we pay city taxes now. So if we pay city taxes, what means that the city won't come in and want to do the upgrade on the road, sidewalks, and so forth? Will our taxes go up too with having that in there? I mean, I'm on a fixed income, and I'm a widow, and so it's really a struggle just to be there. I do have a big lot. We do have the big lots behind us, but I don't have to worry about behind me because I'm connected with the people on Chenoweth Road. But my main concern is the traffic. And right now, I noticed the policemen have patrolled that quite a bit and have marked cars that are parked out in front that haven't moved for a while. And so what means that that'll happen? Where are they going to put their parking for this duplex and so forth? If she's going to have a business in it and residents.
Again, I don't hear a business anywhere?
Yeah, can I interject really quickly? So the request that we received for the zone change was the intention of having a duplex. So she has not come to us seeking approval yet for any triplex or office space or anything like that.
Will you, as the planning commission, require that they have off-street parking, and that, I mean, how will that be?
So
There isn't much in the front, there is the back.
So one of the requirements that we have right now in our code is to require 2 parking spaces per each residential unit on site. So in this case, it's an existing single-family dwelling now, so she has the 2 parking spaces in the front currently. So proposing this additional second duplex, she's proposing to have a parking lot in the back of her property.
Okay, so there's only one in the front now for 2 cars.
So I did a site visit last week, and it appeared that there's able to do 1 parking space underneath the covered garage area, and behind that.
They tore that down. That's been torn down. The
Okay.
carport's been torn down. All they have now is the garage. And so I was concerned about that because I thought, well, why did they, I know it was leaking and so forth, so they did tear it down. And they're watching it daily, it's just across the street, so.
So I can go back out there and do a site visit, but I would be under the assumption that the driveway is still there, though?
The parking
Just
lot,
the
yeah,
covered
it goes
space is
into the
gone.
garage in the front, yes, but not in front of the unit. But there is a side parking, just like I have parking to go down and into my garage.
Which is
I do
the
have a
front and
garage.
which is the
My
back?
unit is 710 square
Bottom is the
foot,
front.
so it's a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And
On the street.
because I do have a utility room off the kitchen.
Is that part in the back, is that like an alley, or is that another street? Oh,
I
okay.
don't know what you
So
call
it's,
it.
there's 2 streets.
It's an easement because the manufactured home court is right there too. What do you call it? Is it an easement?
It's
Like
ideal,
this.
and Haven Trailer Courts is.
So basically they
that's
could
a
put stuff here
senior-
and stuff here.
Senior
Got it.
trailer court for people over 50.
And these are manufactured
That's not
homes
a
in here too, because
900
my
square
daughter
foot roof line.
lives right over here, so.
So
Interesting.
essentially, it's switching from general commercial to residential medium, right? And it.
Just that
so
one, yeah.
Well, does it, with the general commercial designation right now, I imagine if that were to go away, less commercial uses would be allowed on that property?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I do have one question. My understanding, if we own a home on that lot, those commercial lots, if there is a fire and it burns down, we cannot build again because it's commercial. Is that anything you know about?
So I'd have to look into it further, but I think you'd have to comply with the new standards as they were in the
I've been
code.
there 26 years, so almost 27.
I'd probably look further into that. I don't know the answer to that right this second, so.
You've been there 40 years.
Because it looks as though a large portion of that general commercial area is dedicated to residential development.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why it was
All
zoned
have-
commercial.
And
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
It really looks kind of strange when you start looking at big words and the.
Change the residential, because there's only, to my knowledge, in that green picture, there's only one, and he's not even really commercial.
Yeah, there's these two houses, and but this is all where the Hispanic people have their garage and the eatery place, right over in here. But they aren't
That's
commercial.
way over, that whole row is houses there.
This
That
is
whole
behind
row
here.
of
But
West
these-
7th
Yeah,
is
those are seven,
houses.
but right here.
Oops.
Yeah, that's the Mexican parking lot, but that all right there is houses.
On seven.
Yeah, on 7.
Interesting.
It's probably commercial because it's right off 6th Street.
That Lee
Right.
isn't, that part of Lee isn't accessible from 6.
Well, is that part of a business district too?
No,
It's not being
what you're
used as
looking
such.
at here is, this is the original section of Ideal Trailer Court. Then this is the second part of Ideal Trailer Court, and the Texaco gas station's over in here, if that gives you a landmark. And then down over in here is where the new Home Depot was. When I moved in, it was still the Granada Theater. Okay,
The drive-in.
this part here, these are this is residential, and it faces Chenoweth Loop, these houses here. This is a trailer court, and this has always been a separate piece of property. This is the housing development that was put in 1952. And some of these have, my house, 733, is still an original house, is why it's 680 square feet. Originally, that's what they all were. This house that she wants to turn into however many apartments has a great big in-ground swimming pool put here. And then this was a car drive-in, a carport, and they've torn that down. So this house, they were lucky enough to add a lot of stuff, but it still has teeny tiny little bathroom, teeny tiny little kitchen, and
Yeah, the house itself cuts off right at the end of the carport area.
right here.
No, go down.
No, down,
Back,
down,
back,
on the bottom.
back, you're not too far.
Yeah, right towards the front of the house. Yeah, that's the whole house right there.
Yeah, but that, the back of it, towards Irvine, is
Is a
where the
pool.
pool. Yeah.
And they've already got that filled in with concrete.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the comments from the neighbors. This was part of the discussion we wanted to have this evening once we kind of get through this initial request of rezoning and changing, amending the comp plan for this one particular lot. We have done research in this particular area, and it's an area that we think deserves further study as to the existing commercial zoning, because we have a lot of residential properties, a lot of homes that are zoned, and yes, your homes are considered non-conforming uses.
We're not.
And not just because of the teeny tiny bathrooms, kitchens. And it's an area that we think that, quite frankly, needs to be zoned residential. And we also are looking at a larger planning study for this particular area. So, and this is one thing that we don't really try to discourage, is having zoning change one lot at a time, because we like to take a look at what those impacts would be on the entire neighborhood. And we do have commercial zoning, Home Depot area. There is commercial zoning also on the West 6th Street frontage. This little pocket is, and I don't really know why it was zoned commercial in the first place, but maybe for try to encourage redevelopment of the area. But that's difficult to do when you have small lots like this, because you really need to take a look at the individual lots and the lotting patterns and what we have there. So again, in this request, we took a look at it and said, you know, we are looking at just rezoning and amending the comp plan for this one lot. We don't consider it spot zoning. because there is existing residential zoning right next to it, to the west, or whatever direction that is. I always get my directions confused here.
Yonder way.
Yonder way? Yeah, I like that. Yonder way. Way close yonder and far
I like
yonder.
that.
But in this particular case, we thought that if it was to be rezoned to the residential medium, based on the density requirements, they technically could put 3 units on that lot. In this particular case, they're requesting the zone change just for the 2 units. And since it does have frontage on both sides, we consider it's called a double frontage lot. So we think that those parking impacts or traffic impacts could be mitigated about that. So what's before us, the Planning Commission this evening, is a recommendation to the City Council. So there will be a separate public hearing for the City Council in a month or so for final action. But we'd like to be able to get a recommendation from the Commission to, if you want to recommend to rezone the property, with a little side recommendation that would request the City Council to direct staff to examine this area in more detail and come back and say maybe residential zoning would be better than the commercial zoning that it is now, because that would allow you to make improvements to your property, rebuild it if necessary, things like that. So
That's what yeah.
I like that idea of changing it all to residential. However, I disagree with putting in a duplex, triplex, quadplex, whatever there, due to the fact that every single person that's on that Lee Street is A, senior citizen, B, disabled, and/or has PTSD. That being said, you get that kind of movement in and out, the fluctuation that rentals bring in. What about the security that we have? I mean, we're all in a close-knit little family per se. I mean, I just came out of stage 4 cancer 2 years ago, and my close-knit little family took care of my yard, the ice on the sidewalk, everything else for me, my walkways, my dogs. I didn't have to ask, it was just done. And you don't get that when you have a whole bunch of people fluxing in and fluxing out.
I need your name and address.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I just,
That's
tell me your
okay.
name. I'm the first child.
I'm not.
You're the baby.
No, I'm the middle.
The middle kid. Christy, with a K?
Christine.
Christy.
B. Y or I.
I. Peterson, S-O-N,
And your street number.
729.
Lee, right?
Yes, I'm at the end of the street. And the idea of opening that up for more traffic flow scares me to death. It totally scares me, I mean, no.
well, our police department, we do have now what's called our NEAT officer. And it's not just because he's got a really sharp haircut or anything. It stands for like Neighborhood Enforcement Action Team, something like that. And he's a community services officer. He's the person that we deal with a lot when we have complaints, code enforcement, cars that are parked illegally and things like that.
How about 4 cars that aren't registered that have expired license plates that have been parked at the end of the road that pick up the phone? Everybody's going out with them? Here to testify, still there, a year later. I just called and had Nikki come out and do a run by, still there.
All right, well, I'm Nikki's boss.
Okay, Nikki's boss, Steve. My name is Christy Peterson. I'm the harassing person that calls.
If it isn't her.
But I say, don't use my name because the guy that is attached to those cars is a psychopath. He's violent, he's nuts.
Just to remind everyone that we are live video streaming, and this is all part of the administrative record. So,
as far as the duplex, if they're putting parking on Irvine Street, so one would be, it's a double-facing lot, so Lee actually wouldn't have any additional.
But they'd be changing off and on. You know how fast
I
rentals
do.
Maybe, maybe not.
I own the largest management company in town.
You do what?
I own the largest property management company in town.
Okay, so you know.
I know how frequent it is, but it isn't as frequent as most people think. The turnover is actually very small.
Is they gonna be senior citizens?
Are they gonna have young children riding bicycles up and down the street? I think there should be some kind of, the whole trailer park behind the whole Lee Street, everybody there is retired senior citizens. I mean, if they move in there, they should follow suit. I would think you can't.
But you can't discriminate.
You
Is
can't
very
discriminate
good.
anymore.
You can't discriminate.
I've been in apartments.
You can have it say that this is a senior 55 and older apartment dwelling, just like the 55-year-old and older.
Unless it's designated as such, then it's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
So,
it could be designated.
Also, if a duplex goes there, it could be in the future, your properties go up in value because it's a double-facing lot and your smaller houses could be replaced with duplexes.
And our taxes and bills.
And that-
I want the taxes.
Only on the properties that are improved, so as long as you have a small one, and I'm probably
Yeah, if you
speaking
don't
out of
do
the wrong
anything
side of my
else,
head here, but,
Taxes can only go up 3% a year.
yeah. So unless you change it, you can't. So,
It seems
I mean,
like,
hers will go up, but ours wouldn't. Is that what you're saying?
exactly.
It seems like that it's a shame to just do the one lot. And it seems like we ought to do the study and
Do the whole thing.
do them as a group.
We can appreciate
How long is that going to take, though?
I don't know, but it,
Well, there's a couple of different things where we have a request before you now, and to amend the comprehensive plan and to change the zoning.
we could deny that.
Based on what, though?
Well, that we need
just
to,
don't feel like it?
we need to study this and do the right thing.
Well, this, I mentioned that this is a small area of a much larger study that we are proposing, that we undertake next year.
And the study might give it a totally different zoning than what we're temporarily doing with this,
the
just the
zoning
one
has
lot.
been changed since I lived there, sir, and I moved there in 1976. And it was a residential area before, and Westgate Bowling Alley was added in there. And as best I recall, that's when we got zone commercials, was so that Westgate Bowling Alley could be put in, because I've lived there that long.
Bowling alley's no longer there.
No, no.
So
It's on the opposite
zoning
side of
is
this.
still
But the
there.
zoning's there.
Well, it doesn't mean that that's right. I mean,
Well, yeah, I agree with you, sir, but I'm saying that's when it happened.
yeah, I understand that. It just seems like piecemealing it never seemed like a good thing as far as I was concerned. If you do the right thing and you do the study and you come up with what should be.
But in the meantime, as a property owner with a commercial piece of property that I cannot make into a duplex, I might decide as a business that I make it an office building or a
24-hour.
shop or a...
24-hour store.
Yeah, 24-hour market, which doesn't help any of your concerns.
Right. I think another way to look at it is look at the future. If someone wanted to buy, because essentially this is going up to city council for a recommendation that a study's done for that whole area, and then it comes back to us, right?
Well, Commissioner, I wouldn't, right now, the study for this west side area is a proposed work item that needs to go to the city council as part of the budget hearings, and this is for fiscal year that begins in July 1. So
It may not happen in the near future.
it's part of a much larger effort. And at this particular point, I can't say whether I would agree or disagree to segment out this particular sub-area as part of that larger study.
Well, I was going to say, looking at the future, I mean, right now, if, like in her instance, if a home was to burn down, it may or may not be able to be replaced. If someone wanted to sell that piece of land in the future, the way it's zoned right now, and if they wanted to rebuild on it, there's potential that they couldn't because it's not zoned residential.
Well, there is one lot that is, the house burned down and nothing's happened to the lot,
Right.
so I don't know if that.
Right.
Thornson's house burned down because they couldn't, the fire department could not find Lee Street.
Yeah.
And
That's
that,
because there's no sign. Yeah, what's,
No, there are signs, there were signs at the time, they just drove right.
these are all these are all very valid concerns, but really they don't, I'm so sorry, but they don't
Here's
have
what
to
we're talking
do,
about tonight.
they don't have to do with what we're being asked to do, which is to actually reduce the level of use and intrusion that could happen on your property.
Yes.
From commercial to residential, where we're going to require parking for one unit to be on the other street, which isn't going to impact you. So in essence, your impact of parking won't be worse. You'll have an improved piece of property next to you instead of one that appears to be kind of deteriorating. And someone's not going to come in and put a commercial use in there, which would be super disruptive, I would think, in your community. And I just don't see how we deny it when it's like right next to the zone they're asking for. To sum it up?
I agree. I just, from a practical side, it's suggesting waiting till it gets studied and rezoned.
But that's where
Yeah.
the help the lady does.
Yeah, if you owned that piece of property, that would not help you.
Yeah, because
Okay,
like they
if
said,
we
it's going to be
rezone-
years down the
rezone
line.
that particular lot as a residential, what can they do in it in terms of a residence?
In terms of residence.
Yeah.
So I'll just read you guys what's in here.
Because if we change the zoning to residential, then that's,
So it's medium density residential, so it's gonna be more limited than like something like the high density residential. But for example, the medium density residential zone allows for single family development, multifamily development, manufactured dwelling park. This kind of goes on to like the arrangement of those residential, so it's duplex and single family attached, small lot, single family detached dwellings, attached townhouses, civic use types, care facility use types, so child care centers or residential care facilities, wireless communication facilities, other uses as determined similar.
so would they be able to make it into a duplex and then have an office there?
So
Commercial office?
right now, commercial uses are not listed as an allowed use for that zone.
Right.
Well, in the general commercial zone, it is obviously. In the RM zone, there are no listed commercial.
So it sounds like an RM zone would do you better to maintain the character of the area than leaving it as commercial.
But we were told something completely different than what she read.
Yeah.
Well, but what you were told is not allowed, based on what,
We didn't know that till we got here.
I know.
So if you change hers, the one house, you're proposing not just changing the one, go ahead and changing all of them?
The recommendation would be that they go ahead and study it
And see.
and probably convert that at least a chunk of that into residential. I mean, it's,
That would make perfect sense to me, both sides of Lee Street all the way down.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah.
And at
That would
the,
I
cover
agree,
your
I'm-
insurance
Yeah.
quandaries.
and at the point that that was done, you would again have an opportunity to speak about
but that would at least
What you
protect
think?
your own homes, and eventually, if you could ever do that, then if something happened to your home, you can at least replace it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, so I mean,
Because
seems like it would be the best solution for you guys.
when you've had 2 houses burned in that area, it's scary.
Oh, I could agree, I would be scared.
Especially if the fire department can't find a way around.
And by the way, I don't manage that drug house across the street. I don't have any houses on Lee Street.
So are we ready for a?
Yeah, I think we would need to probably approve the change, and with the caveat that they, as soon as they can, if they can break money loose, study that and at least recognize the residential character of that That's part of it. You're shaking your head no.
I was just wondering if the public hearing is still open or not. I don't think.
We haven't done anything.
We're not having a public hearing.
No, it's not, it's a legislative hearing. So. Am I doing something wrong?
No, sorry.
Well, it is a public hearing, so.
Yes, yeah.
And at some point, you probably do want to close it, so you can have your deliberation.
So
Decide what actions
the
to take.
agenda was incorrect?
Well, it's a legislative hearing, so
Yeah.
we still have to close it at some point.
Well, what I was trying to throw out was what we need to do at the next step of this thing. We need to agree on that before we close the discussion, I think. Somehow, we need to encourage the city to study this and
Steve, did you say that's already in the budget request, the study for this area? Okay, so it's already
so
in the
we
works.
just want to encourage it.
We need to take a breaker. Sorry.
Take a break.
Fidgeting.
She's getting puny, you best move on.
No, I'm not getting puny.
Do we have, is somebody prepared to give us a motion?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll close the public testimony and we'll hear the motion.
Okay, let's see if I can get this. I move that we accept application number : the comprehensive plan amendment CPA 44-19 and the zoning ordinance amendment ZOA 98-19 by Wilcox? Walisha, thank you.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. You got everybody? Okay.
Sorry.
And hopefully that'll include some encouragement to,
You guys are delightful. Can I say that?
Thank you for coming.
Come anytime.
I hope this is worthwhile.
well, see, it was good of you to move forward because it puts you more into the center of the discussion.
Oh, well, I'm glad you did. It's nice to be able to voice our opinion here.
Yeah.
Well, we try to listen to what people have to
Sometimes it
say.
doesn't always happen. Thank you.
We try. It doesn't always work that way, but we try.
Thanks.
That's good.
Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
We have two resolutions that we need to approve and send on. Resolution, the first one, A, is Resolution 579-19, approval of SPR 458-19. That should be from our first hearing. We need a motion to approve that resolution.
Commissioner Steve, do you
I'd like to, I don't know what the proper procedure is, but I do want to point something out about the last subject that we had.
Okay.
In the applicant's request, it states, existing home has approximately 2,000 square foot indoor pool area that we would like to turn into a livable duplex while keeping the residence as well. So the application is actually so that that will be a triplex.
No, I don't.
Well, that's what this reads. That we would like to turn into a livable duplex while keeping the residence as well.
So that might just be the incorrect grammar of it, but I'm under the impression that she's filling in the pool, maintaining that single-family dwelling, like she's not taking it down, and she's converting that into a duplex, not the third triplex.
Yeah, I think she's talking about the whole building
Like-
as duplex.
So it sounds like that language needs to be
Right,
amended.
The wording
Should be,
does indicate a triplex, but
The way this is stated, she would turn the pool area into a livable duplex while keeping the residence as well.
Well, at any rate, she'd have to come back formal application.
I mean, if you're going to convert a pool into a living space and you got 2,000 square feet, that would be the biggest house in the neighborhood.
Well, I think it is already.
No, but what I'm stating is, you would, as a landlord, you would, and you were spending the money, you would convert it into a duplex. I'm not trying, I don't want to, I'm just trying to point that out. I believe, by the way I interpret it, I believe she's looking to create a triplex there. That's all.
Does she have an application in to do that?
What I'm under the impression is she's requesting a duplex. So that might just be the language, and I'm looking through the rest of the application now, but, yeah, so, and that's another thing, she has not submitted building plans yet, and so that would be through the time of the building permit, we would evaluate that, so.
Because she's just been approved for a duplex, not a triplex.
Well, we are not approving the use of the building at this time.
Just
We're
the change of
approving the
zone.
change of the zone.
Okay, but the motion that we have in front of us is to, resolution for the first application for the market.
Yeah, let's get that done first.
Okay.
And we have a motion and a second.
Do we?
I thought we had a motion.
I don't think we
We
did.
didn't get a motion yet?
No.
We got sidetracked.
Okay, well, let's take care of that one and then.
Let's see, what was the number? Got too much paper.
It's back here.
Resolution number PC 579-19.
It's right here.
Okay, I make a motion.
Based on findings of facts, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, okay, I make a motion that we approve resolution number PC 5791-19 with the finding of facts and the condition
As
stated
okay.
previously.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Moved and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay. Okay. Do you want to do anything then with the,
Seriously wrong.
I guess all we're voting on with the resolution,
Right.
the other resolution, is the rezoning. It doesn't
Right.
have anything to do with the development.
Right.
Okay. And at this point, our understanding is it's a duplex they're gonna end up with, not a triplex.
Yeah.
I don't know how that fits, but, the other resolution is PC 580-19. And what what it does, I believe, is recommending to the city
It's in the very back.
council that they modify the zoning and the comp plan.
Yep. So I move that we accept resolution number PC 580-19 with findings of fact.
Beat me to it.
Thank you.
Second it.
Moved and seconded.
Second a lot.
And thirded.
And 30. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Got it? Okay. That was an interesting evening.
So I just have a question so I can understand the process in the future. When we're having public hearings, if public comments are brought forth, they have concerns, and we want to be able to, if the planning department wants to be able to incorporate that into the staff report with conditions and whatnot, what is is that handled outside of the hearing, or is that, just, is the hearing the end of
We can
it?
add conditions of approval
Okay,
to so it depends on a number of things. There are cases where we have added conditions. And there are probably places where it's more appropriate than others, but if you've decided that there's something that you need to include one way or the other, either you get an agreement with the planning department and the applicant, and in the case of the community members, to work together. I mean, we can ask or demand that they do that, but generally speaking, the planning department is willing to deal with that kind of stuff, and they're good at it. So it's probably, it's more flexible if we could turn the applicant and the public and the planning department loose and let them come up to and find solutions.
Okay.
But yes, you can't always do everything that somebody wants to have.
Right. Right. But I just thought.
You do your best to try to make everybody's stuff work out.
Right. It was my understanding that at the end of the hearing, once it's been approved, no additional conditions could be imposed on the application after that.
I wouldn't necessarily say, but generally, no, you're right. I think generally, once it's been voted on and decided, that's.
Okay.
But the planning department has a certain amount of flexibility too. Because they're still working with the applicant, and the applicant, if they want to be successful, needs to deal with their neighbors. So you still are looking for solutions.
Yeah.
At least that's my approach. I would like to see solutions that do the most for the most people in the process.
Yeah.
And still be legal. Does that help you at all?
Yeah, that answers it.
Staff comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, a couple of items that I think may be of interest to the Planning Commission. At this Tuesday's Urban Renewal Board meeting, and then again on Monday, we're presenting the status of the First Street Streetscape Improvement Project. That's a project that the city has been awarded federal funds quite some time ago. You may remember that project started out about a dozen years ago, plus or minus. It's a streetscape project, then morphed and included a sunken plaza on Washington Street and First Street, and an undercrossing of the railroad and the interstate to connect with the Riverfront Connection Project. And then subsequent to that, the City Council placed a hold on the project in 2015. The city had also received some state transportation improvement funds to partially fund those additional improvements. Council voted to return those funds to the state when they put the project on hold. And then it was then we started, actually we were contacted by the ODOT staff in 2017, wanting to know what the city's intentions were to moving forward with the project. So last year, we began working with ODOT and our project engineer, KPFF, to modify the contract with ODOT, which would allow for an extension of the project timeframe, which would add some additional tasks to the KPFF contract. And so what they've done for us now is they've updated those construction cost figures that were, I think, from 2015, the latest on those, and so they've gone stale on those costs, and so those are updated. And then also part of the amendment for the ODOT contract, we also wanted to extend the project boundaries from easterly from Laughlin to Madison. Take a look at First Street for possible improvements in the streetscape. And then also to the possibility of linking up with the Parks Recreation District's proposed Mill Creek Trail Parkway Plan, which would involve perhaps an extension of an off-street bike path along the UP right-of-way, or perhaps it'd be on-street West 2nd Street. So again, we've been working with KPFF, presented the project to the board on Tuesday night. They moved it on to the City Council with a couple of recommendations. One, not to extend the project boundaries on the easterly side. There's a couple of choke points in the right-of-way that wouldn't allow for the full improvements it planned, sidewalks, curb gutter, travel lane, on-street parking, so things had to be narrowed down, and it just didn't seem to be worth over $1 million additional construction costs for that. So that was eliminated, and then they also continue us to ask staff to work with the railroad and to try to secure the use of that right-of-way through an easement, so we're going to continue to do that as well. And then we'll take those recommendations on to the city council, have them concur, and then also possibly direct us to proceed to the next step of the project, which would be looking at the original project boundaries from Union to Laughlin, and then having our engineering consultant begin the preparation of the construction documents on that section. So,
Does this include Third Street?
no, this is First Street.
Just First Street, okay.
Yes.
And
First Street, streetscape project. Again, this has been with us for quite some time, so we are looking to authorization to continue with it. If we don't continue at this particular time, we will I'll have to notify ODOT and to see what that will do and how that affects the project in total. And one of the caveat about not moving forward with the project, and we would be more than likely responsible for the repayment of those federal funds, which are approximately $400,000 that have been spent to date in the project.
That's an incident.
And a couple other things, I think provided to you on the dais, we had an email from Todd Carpenter, who is Todd Carpenter and Carla McCabe, the new owners of the recreation building that was owned by the agency, was sold. And it's a list of where they are right now and some of their planned improvements. They have been before the Historic Landmarks Commission with some facade changes. They have opened the Last Stop restaurant, which was at the Vault building. So we'll continue to give you updates, and we'll ask Todd and Carla if they want to come before this body in the near future, give you some updates, tell us what their plans are. And I briefly mentioned during the last agenda item about a proposed study for the West Side area. So what we have done, we have submitted a pre-application grant application with the state. It's called one of their TGM grants, Transportation Growth Management. And this would be to have a study of the West Side area, which those boundaries are in flux for right now. They haven't been firmed up. But what it would allow us to do is take a look at the West Side, take a look at land use patterns, existing land uses, take a look at our transportation, our circulation system. If you remember, part of our buildable lands inventory with the residential properties, it showed quite a large number of, I guess, potential capacity for new residential development on the West Side. That residential buildable land study showed that we have an approximate build-out capacity of about 3,600 units within our current urban growth boundaries. And quite a bit of that is located on the west side. So we wanted to take a look at that, of the properties, also commercial industrial land as well. And that's why I was kind of hesitant when you were talking about rezoning not just the one lot from commercial to residential, but all that commercial property. So that's something that we would want to look at that as well.
Well, it seems like that along 6th Street that you would want a band at least of commercial along 6th Street. But once you get a block or so off of that, where you do have housing there right now, especially if we're preventing somebody from replacing a house if for some reason it's damaged, it seems like a shame to force somebody that is retired and probably doesn't have the financial resources to literally move into a different location because their home is gone.
So we want to take a look at it at the macro level. We are also been working on an economic opportunities analysis study that is centered on commercial industrial lands. And we could take the next phase of that study and include it in this West Side study. So again, what we've done so far, we have submitted what's called a pre-application to the state. And the more formal application is not due until, I believe it's June. And then we'll grant notification in August. So it's a 2-year process, and so that's more of a longer-term study. But so that is something that hopefully will be part of our work program for next year.
Have we ever found out what property out on the port that is absorbed with or tied into the vernal pools that would prevent us from developing it? Do we know how much of that land is actually usable for development?
Are you talking about the property that was included within the Walmart proposal?
I would guess that it would apply to anything out there, not just the Walmart proposal, but if you were to try to build someplace else on the industrial lands that we have out there.
The old aluminum site.
Yeah, the old aluminum site, but where the old golf course was, and there's property behind where the golf course was that has a lot of water in there. But do we have any idea how much land is actually developable over there?
I don't know.
Question. It seems like
I do have a little bit of knowledge on that because I'm the one who sold that property for Northwest Aluminum.
Okay.
And I've walked that property a lot. And yes, the wetlands over there across from PUD are wetlands and will remain wetlands. Actually, your predecessor and I went round and round on putting a sidewalk along River Road. And there are quite a few pieces of wetland along River Road. There's also, between the wetlands across from PUD and the aluminum plant, is the Scrubber Sludge Ponds, which was where they dumped a lot of semi-bad stuff and covered it with 2 feet of clay, and then later Russian olive trees grew there, but you still can't dig there, you can just let it be. Going west, if you want to call the river north, it's actually going north, but you have the aluminum plant, then you have a pile, which would have to be moved off-site. A Superfund site. So beyond that is where Walmart, the company that bought that whole land was looking at putting Walmart a little bit closer to the freeway than where that Superfund site is. And that was Russian olives, that was just raw land. And it wasn't until this whole process went forward with Walmart that it started being looked at for other things. So most of the year, you walk out there with no problem. Actually, there's also a piece of property there that is a wetland that was moved onto that property from where they put the overpass, the Fish Bridge overpass in. And because that was a wetland that they put the bridge on,
mitigation,
they moved it over there. And in doing the research, that wetland was determined by the state to be a wetland, yet it looked no different than anything else that wasn't a wetland. So there was a lot of questioning that went on. So the vernal pools is really, there's a little plateau there that was where Walmart was going to be, and that's where they determined vernal pools. Everything else kind of sloughs off into some other things.
But it would be nice as a city to know whether that's actually developable and what isn't. I mean, it's just, for long-term planning, it's just.
It may not, my reading of it, my understanding of it is once it was determined to be vernal pools, now you can't build anything there.
That's kind of what I was guessing too. Just.
That actually is, would be the next phase of this economic opportunities analysis, commercial industrial land demand and then supply. So we would take a look at our existing supply, and if there are any environmental constraints on it, those would be noted. And this is another one of the studies that's necessary, that if the city were to go forward at some future date with an application to amend the urban growth boundary and the urban area boundary with the scenic area, these are some of the items that we would need to do. So we're doing that now and in the coming year.
A lot of fun.
And the last item, and this is something your commissioners may want to...
What's your name?
What's her name? Yeah. This last, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we conducted some small focus groups on our downtown visioning exercise, talking about downtown, what it is, what it isn't, what it was, what do you want it to be. We had I think about over 40 people involved in these. And again, the consultants came to the urban renewal meeting, board meeting on Tuesday night and presented out. And we'll follow up this effort this week with a larger public meeting. And we'll report out the results of the small focus groups. We'll ask for feedback, comments, direction, and then we'll get back. We're looking at getting those small groups together again at the end of the process, and then reporting out again to the boards and the commissions. So. And in the future, it could lead to perhaps some rezonings or text change amendments in our zoning ordinance for downtown. It could lead to identification of certain properties or blocks that we would designate perhaps as opportunity areas, opportunity sites that the agency or city may wish to invest in with infrastructure improvements, things like that, as a way to incentivize and encourage redevelopment in the downtown. Anything we'd like to add to that, Commissioner?
It was I thoroughly enjoyed the process that they took us through for the section that we did. It was well done, and I thought got some different kind of input than you normally see. Because of the way they did it, it kind of broadened how we looked at things. I'm looking forward to the public meeting to hear what other people have to say. And are they going to come and present to us at all, or will we just be part of the public meeting?
Us as in the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the intentions, is to report out to the commission and the board and the city council.
Awesome. It was wonderful. So I also wanted to, before I forget, bring up that I did the City Academy, which, by the way, was really awesome. We heard from all the different departments, and I learned more than I thought I would. It was really, really well done. So one of the highlight evening, well, of course, was planning, but the other highlight evening was Public Works.
I thought you were going to say city attorney's.
Oh, June was like you guys were the kickoff night, so we're all still sort of not knowing what we're doing. But the Public Works folks came and did the most amazing presentations. Each department did maybe 15 minutes, and a lot of the things that they covered seemed directly applicable to us, like, what happens with runoff and sidewalks and snow removal, all those things that we sometimes struggle with and kind of are part of our discussion. And I would love to have us have them come and talk to us, and they've
The infrastructure issue.
yeah, they've agreed that they would be willing to do that either in mass, which is an hour or so, or come different people at different times so they don't take so much time up. But I would highly encourage us to do that because it was very, very informative about the infrastructure and the foundation of how things work and what concerns are that some of the decisions and discussions we have directly influence. So I was wowed by their presentation.
I've never heard anybody say they were wowed by an engineer's presentation.
It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome, and they were responsive too. I got my alley graded.
Sometimes we do okay.
They were wonderful. They were wonderful. But then I come from running science centers, so I'm used to listening to scientists and interesting stuff. So,
Do you
remember what the-
electrical engineer here?
Do you remember what the two best city planning movies of all time were?
Blazing Saddles and Dickelson, whatever.
Chinatown.
Thank you. I am never going to see Blazing Saddles the same again. I thought it was all about Madeline, but apparently I was wrong. You guys didn't know that. Those are the best planning movies ever made, did you?
Got Blazing Saddles.
I mean, who doesn't have Blazing Saddles?
The part where he was riding over the Sierra, that was actually filmed next to the sewer plant where I worked at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think there's still fake styrofoam snow floating around here. Couldn't wait for the real thing.
Anyway, that's it. I quit.
Commissioner comments or questions?
And I had a couple of things for the planning commission too.
Oh, you
I know we've been
had
here a
jumped in
long
there,
time,
Steve.
but this afternoon we got the opinion from the Court of Appeals on Mr. Blum's property on 615 East 19th Street. They affirmed the Lubbock decision without an opinion, which basically means they did not give any credit or weight to Mrs. Hunt's arguments, so we prevailed. I was very pleased. The other, some of you have heard, but this week I gave my notice to the city that I will be retiring as of March 1st next year. So,
Congratulations.
Good for you, Gene.
We're gonna miss
Gonna
you.
miss you.
It'd be hard
Glad you
shoes
get
to
stick
fill.
around.
well, I'll still be here, but not be in an official capacity.
You can come over here and.
Yeah, you can come comment.
I've already had some people try to get me to run for city council, and I'm going, no, thank you.
Get contracted.
It's not for a while, so.
Wow.
And we expect the other Luba decision possibly within a week or two on the 13th and Perkins.
Which one was that?
That was
duplex.
the one directly across from Mrs. Hunt.
Oh.
Anything new on Walmart?
Still haven't heard. Don't
I
know.
was kind of wondering when they'll just throw their hands up and say the heck with it.
I think just use one of the other lots in that little subdivision that are all high and dry, don't have any vernal pools on them. I don't know why they were sticking with that one piece of land.
What's going into the old Auto Electric?
That is Copper West.
Dennis Morgan.
Oh.
So they're moving out of their present place.
Yeah, eventually the turn is the plan.
What is Copper West?
The realtors.
Okay.
They're,
Morgan.
yeah, they're in the
Okay.
corner of the Commodore here.
Yeah, I don't know how soon that's gonna happen, but that's,
There was something
Interesting.
going on
Cool.
down Sixth Street, just this side of Home Depot. That's
Isn't that the hotel?
hotel.
that's the hotel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two things. One, I had a question for the hemp processing facility you guys just did. Did you mainly, are they doing marijuana with that too? Or just hemp?
Just hemp.
Just hemp, so doing CBD? So it's just through the Oregon Department of Agriculture? Okay.
Oh, this is industrial hemp, but like for fiber and what have you.
No, well, I think they're doing extractions, right? So it's
Okay.
extracting oils.
Okay, but it has nothing to do with the recreational or medicinal pot.
Yeah. And then also, there was I just wanted to give some feedback from the housing hearing that we had over at the senior center. It was really good. There was a lot of really good information at that meeting. It was kind of shocking to see how close to Corvallis and Eugene we were with rent prices. I feel like it was a little discombobulating for the group activity, especially because there's so many conflicting values within that group that when we sat down and went to talk it out and get our ideas down on paper, especially my group, it was almost impossible just because everyone was going back and forth. And we were 3/4 of the way through the time, and I even said at one point, I said, folks, we got to get something down on paper just so we can have something to turn in, and it didn't even get to that point, I don't think. But a lot of exercises that I've seen work well are like our long-range planner. She does a lot of vision boards, stuff where folks can interact, but not in a conflicting manner. Yeah, that's my feedback. But I thought it was a lot of good information. I really liked it. I was really happy that we held it, and it was good to see so many people turn out for that meeting.
Well done. Well, let's adjourn and go home. I was afraid it was gonna take a little longer.
That's all right.
And I saw people in the audience, I figured it would.
I saw two things on the agenda.
It was kind of a lively discussion.